What's up, guys? Tim also with DragBoss Garage. Welcome to the live chat with Steve Morris, King of Boost, baby. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, everybody.
My family just wanted to come and say hi. They wanted to meet the King of Boost. There he is, Steve Morris.
Nice
That's my wife,
you.
Andrea, Elena,
Hi.
Izzy. So they always like to come and say hi to everybody. There's
Sure.
already like 13 or 14 people here. So I appreciate you taking the time from your family to be on my channel, Steve. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
You know, I'll give you some information about Steve. You know, his motto is innovation, not imitation. And that says a lot. You know, he's not copying everybody else. He's coming up with his own ideas, his own products, his own theories, and putting them on paper and putting the cars on the strip and the engine on the dyno. So thank you for that, Steve. You know, he builds high horsepower engines, but with endurance in mind. You know, we all talk about racing. Okay, we got a fast car. Yeah, you might get 25 runs out of it before you have to change the springs, or even less, depending on what class you're in and what horsepower potential at. But the way he looks at it, he wants to make an engine that's going to survive for quite a long time. You know, the perfect example that I kind of got turned on by you is with Cletus McFarland with Mullet. That's when I first saw you, is when you were at his shop pulling down an oil pan and putting bearings in because the oil pressure was too low. And I saw you doing that on camera. I was like, wow, this guy's, and he's not afraid to work in front of the camera. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you again. I appreciate that. Now you're from Muskegon, Michigan,
Yep.
am I right?
Yep.
Okay. Have you lived there all your life?
No, I've pretty much lived in Michigan all my life, but
Okay.
I moved to this side of the state for my wife.
All right.
Who was originally from Muskegon.
Got it.
Yep.
And you started working on engines in what? In 91? You're like 21 or something? You're working at a parts shop or something that had a machine?
Yep. Yeah. I originally started in a little engine shop behind a parts store, behind a CarQuest store.
Okay.
In Ionia, Michigan. Yeah.
And then did you eventually buy that store?
Oh, yeah. Ultimately, and then a couple of years later, the guy wanted to retire that I was working for, Ken Felice, and then he wanted to sell it, and that's always what I wanted to do. So I bought that store. Like I said, it was literally, it wouldn't have been 500 foot. It was that small.
500
foot.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was literally behind a parts store in a old building, had its own entrance door. But I'd say it was probably 25 foot by 25 foot, right around there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Compared to what, 15,000 square foot now, you know?
15,000 square foot, yeah.
That's amazing growth.
Yeah.
And please don't do that. So you sold that. It's something about, I remember I read something where the only ship in partnership, there's no ship in partnership. I remember someone said that. Can you refresh that?
Yeah, no, that's a Dave Ramsey saying, but actually
Okay.
it was there's no ship that, or let's see, what does it say? It says the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership.
Partnership, yeah.
Yeah. But no, that was long before that. I was just young, and I didn't know how to do stuff. I didn't know how to run anything. I didn't know how to run a business, and so learned that pretty quick, and wasn't making any money, and was really falling behind. Couldn't pay my bills, so I ended up selling it to another parts store.
Okay.
And so they ran that for a while, and then I had a job opportunity. It opened up at Dart Cylinder Heads.
That's
So
like 95-ish?
That would have been 90. No, that would have been probably more like 93, 94, right around there. Yeah, 94. Would have been 94.
So you went to work for Maskin at Dart?
Yep.
Building top fuel cars or funny cars, or what did you build?
No, that's all pro stock. That's NHRA pro stock for Jim Yates.
Okay.
So we were doing a leasing program at the time. So we were building engines and leasing engines to Tom Martino, that was at Jessel at the time, Chuck Harris, Jim Yates. And Jim Yates was winning championships at that point in time and was racing for McDonald's. So that was back when McDonald's was sponsoring all the cars.
Okay.
Yeah,
Dang,
Cruz
man.
Pedregon, and can't remember who the top fuel guy was for McDonald's, but it was Cruz Pedregon for Funny Car,
Okay.
and Jim Yates for the Pro Stock.
So you're going from this shop, this little shop, doing. All right. Love you guys.
All right, see ya.
All right. See you later. We'll
Bye.
talk
Nice
later.
meeting you. Bye.
Bye. Love you. Thanks. So you went from this little shop to working on pro stock engines.
Yep.
I mean, what kind of transition is that? I mean, think about it. I don't know anything about that as far as like the detail, but in my own head and experience, I can tell you it's way different, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, pretty significant. But it was the one thing that was a little bit similar was it was very small right there. So when I went there, it was only Richard Maskin, Paul Hoskin, and myself. So that was the only people that were in the engine room that were doing anything with the building the pro stock engines. So
Okay.
it was just us. And obviously I came in there as the trainee and worked directly underneath Paul. And no, it was I tell the stories of one of my stories from there is I go there from this little podunk machine shop behind a part store.
Yeah.
And I actually went there for a cylinder head porting position. So I went
Okay.
there, interviewed for a head porter, and just doing grinding work and whatnot. And they came up to me and said, "Hey, we think you'd be better suited, given your history, for the engine room, but we're not ready to hire yet." And this is like in June. And so I go, "Okay, that'd be great. That's exactly what I want to do. I want to build pro stock engines since I was 16, 17 years old." And so they, this was in June or so, didn't hear anything by July. And so every week on Friday, every week, I called those guys. "You make a decision yet? You make a decision yet?" And they'd say, "Nope, not yet." I called those guys all the way up till December. So for the next 5-6 months, I called them every week, 5 months. I called them every week on Friday to see if they'd made a decision yet. And finally, somewhere along the lines it would have been real close to Christmas, probably before Christmas. I called them. They said, "Yep, be here on January 1st. I go, "Okay." And I started on January 1st. Must have been, so that would have been 94, 95, so 95, 96, 97. No, it would have been that would have been 94. So I would have started there January 1st, 1994.
Wow.
And yeah, oh yeah, it's an interesting thing. So there's a lot of neat stuff that I learned. Everything I learned at that point in time was from there.
It's just amazing. I think at Dart, I never thought about that at engine room or where I only think, oh yeah, they made blocks, cylinder heads, intakes. I didn't think that they built engines there.
No, that was Richard's pet project. So Richard
Okay.
was in Richard was in pro stock all the way from, shoot, what was his guy's name?
Oh, M&M.
So Walt wasn't Walt. It's shoot. They used to race at AMC in pro stock.
Yeah. Andy Manarino.
Well, yeah, Andy Manarino. That was another part of it, but I didn't do anything with Andy. He was long since gone by the time I got there.
Okay.
And no, it was the guy after Andy Manarino. No, actually, it was the guy before that. I'm sorry. So, anyways, he was always doing something in pro stock, and then, so the engine room was just part of the Dart cylinder head deal.
I never even knew that.
Yep.
I'll tell you, Steve. There's 77 people here. We've only been on the air for like 9 minutes, so that's a good following. Check this out. I'll put up some comments so I'll read them. I don't know if you can see them, so I'll read them out.
Oh, there you go.
What a legend. I subscribe to Steve's channels. Very thankful for the insight and information he has opened to share for us. Awesome work, Tim. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
And that brings up a topic. Here's one of the things I noticed about you when I compared to other people, and even myself, I kind of cut and paste sometimes. But when you make a mistake on the camera, you own up to it. You say, all right, we've got to figure this out. And I think I mentioned this maybe before about that. I watched that one where you're cranking up the boost master. And I mean, you turned it over probably 20 or 30 times. The thing just wouldn't fire. It was, you know what it was? It was the injector tip had had a piece of dirt in it or something.
Oh yeah, I had a bad injector that was hung open and took
Yeah,
me
remember?
to figure it out, and I was just stupid about it.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
there's my dog.
yeah, there it is. What's that dog's name? Dewey?
Dewey.
Yeah. I had Zeus here, but he left. You
Yeah.
know, you could see with the kids, they like to be involved with a camera and move
Yep.
things around. I don't want this head setup falling over or something like that.
Sure.
So, but it takes a lot to be able to do that on camera. You know, you have like 185,000 subscribers. Not
Yep.
that everybody's watching all at once, but it doesn't bother you to not screw up, but not be 100% when you do something, does it?
No, not at all. I mean, I shoot all those videos live.
Yep.
I do really minimal amount of editing. If I'm talking, usually I don't do any editing on what I talk about. I don't do a bunch of retakes. I don't do anything like that. So a lot of times people will see me thinking about stuff because I'm literally am thinking about it right at the minute.
Right on the spot.
Yeah, on the spot. So I don't want to be real rehearsed or any of that other stuff. I just want to be. I'm figuring that if I'm going to do it, honestly, I'm going to do it with the. This will sound bad, but it won't when you explain it. I want to do it with the minimum amount of work. I just want to be myself, show exactly what I'm doing, show exactly what I'm thinking. And if people enjoy that, that's cool. If they don't, okay, that's fine too. But I don't go do things to make content. Everything that I do is stuff, or that I have a video on, is actually stuff that I'm working on, doing right at the minute. I don't hunt around looking for my next thing I'm going to do. So I'm not putting that kind of effort into it. I am showing what I work on, what I do every day.
I like that. No work involved. It is work, but no work. Just comes natural for you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna work for this thing. I'm not gonna go hunt around for content. I'm not gonna figure out what the next thing is I'm gonna do, that kind of stuff. It's like, no, I think we should video this. So this is interesting. Let's do this, and I'll just turn the phone on. So that's it. Yeah.
Kind of like me, only a little bit different. You know, I make videos of basically just my cars that I race. That I've been racing for 40 years. I've been racing Cleveland's. So I started documenting things of how I change the leaf springs, or how I put the shocks in, or how I cut back the shock towers, or put the engine together. Just like that. I'm kind of into the pro stock thing because I grew up, you know, I'm a little bit older than you, not by much, only a couple years. You know, we both got gray, so
yeah,
right up there. But back in '75, I was 10. So that's when I kind of got into the movement. And I said this to another guest I had on live chat, is that I remember seeing Wide World Sports. It was on Channel 9. And it only came on once in a while back then. We had 3 channels, 3, 5, and 9.
Yeah.
I would just once in a while get, you know, the races, pro stock races. You know, I'd see Glidden race, and I'd see him win, and I'd think, man, that car's great. I love that engine. I didn't really know much about that. But then I had neighbors that had a Mustang. I had a guy that had a Hemi Super B down the street. You know, I didn't know much about Hemis. Another guy had it was an LT1 Vet. I think that's a 360 horse, 350 or something. But I'd see these cars, man, I want to get that stuff. I want to be into that. So I'm kind of stuck in the 70s with my technology, whereas obviously you're current 2023. So I'm kind of stuck in that area, which is what I enjoy. That's my niche, and that's what I like to do. But when I started watching your channel and seeing these engines making, you know, 4,000 horsepower, and they sit there and idle, it's like, geez, that thing doesn't even sound like it's got a nasty cam in it. I mean, what's going on here? So I started researching about boost. I mean, I know about turbos, but watching your channel, I've learned so much, you know. And one of the things when we get to that point, I got a few questions about the Mullet build.
Sure.
After you left Maskins, so maybe 2000, 2001-ish, you kind of got into on your own another endeavor?
Let's see. Yeah, so I left Maskin, and then to open up my own shop. And then I ran that shop, until 2006. Okay. And then in 2006, I took on a business partner to run the business side of things. And we ran that until 2008. And in 2008, I just had a we just had a really big falling out, and I said, see ya. And so,
What?
yeah, I just left. I left everything.
What do you
And
mean
they
everything?
they continued to use my name for a little while,
Yeah.
and they tried to keep business open, and eventually they didn't stay open any longer. But so long story short, go to 2010. So 2010 is where I reopened up all by myself. I said, not going to have any partners. I'm not going to be associated with anybody. I'm going to do exactly what I think needs to be done, when I think it needs to be done, how I think it needs to be done. And that's it, period. And so I started out in 2010, and I had $600, and I was in my 20-foot by 20-foot garage behind my house. So almost the same size shop as what I started out with when I was 21. Oh, that would have been, actually, it would have been in 2010. I would have been, because that was like in October, November 2010. So I would have been 31. So, 10 years later, basically.
Dang, man. I just want to give a shout out to your subscribers. I see a lot of people here. We got over 96 people, or almost 100 in only a few minutes. So probably a lot of them are your people, your subscribers that enjoy what you have to say. So thanks, guys, for being here at DBG. I appreciate that. And so how did you get hooked up with Tom Bailey? He seems to be like a guy that really kind of was one of your first customers, maybe?
Yeah. So I've been with Tom since right from the beginning of 2010.
Okay.
So, in fact, Tom dropped the very first engine off to me in my shop, my little 20-foot by 20-foot shop behind my house. Tom dropped off the very first engine for his first drag week car back then.
I remember that car. It was a gold Camaro. I could see it.
No.
Trailer, I think, wasn't it?
No, different car. This is before that. So that's the six.
Oh.
That's 1.0. That's a 6-second car.
6-second. Yes.
Yeah, 1.0. So
okay.
There's a really long story with that. But no, Tom actually started out with this ratty old 1969 Camaro, and we call it the burial ground car because this thing had it had more demons and more problems than you could ever imagine. Every single time you took the car out, there was something going on with it. So we ended up calling it the burial ground car because it would die every race. Somewhere, somehow, some way, it would die every race. Yeah.
Because I remember getting into that was NMCA stuff. Because I remember I still have the magazine where it showed a picture of him with a trailer. I think it was driving in the rain. I remember seeing that in my head.
Yeah, no, that's 1.0. So that was the hurricane season of drag week. So
yeah,
we actually drove the car. That would have been 2016.
Okay.
2016, and we were in North Carolina, and there was a hurricane that came through in North Carolina during drag week. So we were driving that car and through the rain, pulling trailer.
What do you mean we? I mean, you were there?
I was a passenger, so I'm always a passenger in the car.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you've gone on a few of these?
I've been on every one of them.
Damn, I didn't know all that.
Well, I take that back. Not every drag week. I took my car to the very first one, and then Tom started doing them in 2011.
Wow.
Yep. And so now 2011, I didn't go with Tom. 2012, 2013, and ever since I've been with Tom on drag week.
I mean, does that car have heat?
No, it doesn't have heat. Doesn't have windshield wipers, and we have to drive it with the windows down because it fogs up so bad. So,
that's what I was going to say. How do you keep it from fogging up?
Yeah, no, it's nasty. It's nasty.
Wow.
But there's a lot of people that would. That was on the cover of Hot Rod magazine.
Yeah.
That's all over the place, and that was taken by shucks, can't remember his name right now. He's one of the lead photographers for Motor Trend. Darn it, I can't remember his name. But anyways, it was that's 100% legit. I mean, right after we took that picture, we'd stopped at a Dollar General. It was raining so hard we just could not even see anything. So we just stopped and we're trying to ride it out. The car is just getting poured on, and with no hood on it, so my engine's just sitting there getting drenched. And but people still every once in a while pop up that photo It is so ridiculous that people think that it's fake. It's not fake. I was in the car. I had the window down because you couldn't roll the windows up because it would fog. It's a pro modified car. There's no radiator in it. I mean, there's no heater core in it. There's none of that crap. So I mean, it was nasty. I mean, you're sitting there and there's rain coming in the car. I mean, we're driving 30 mile an hour down the road because it was so bad. You're pulling a trailer. You got a 20 or let's see, 17, 18-inch wide tire on the back of it. I mean, it's a hydroplane and mother trucker. It is terrible.
What do it have for gears in it?
Oh, I think that car might have a, it's either got a 389 or a 410 in it. I think it's a 389.
So that's not really bad when you got a tall tire on it.
Well, we have an overdrive in that car, so there's a gear bender overdrive on it also.
Was it run a turbo 400?
Turbo 400, yeah. So it'll go down the road. It goes. Let's see, that car 1.0 is probably like in 2,500 RPM. It's probably around 70.
Okay, that's not bad.
No, it's not. It's not bad. Yep, not bad.
My Ford truck almost.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna say something to the people that are watching our audience because Steve's never been on one of these. Have you, Steve?
No, not yet.
So I'll kind of clue you in, and I don't want to be rude to you, but on the side, you don't see it, but on the side are all these comments that are people going crazy on here, asking questions. You know, they want to give shout outs to you, that kind of stuff. So I don't want to interrupt you when we're talking, but there's some good things that I'd like to point up, you know, when we get there.
Sure.
I think it'd be interesting for all of us because that's how we learn. Just like you said, you make a mistake, you learn from it. It's not a mistake. Mm-hmm. So let's see what this. Hey, Steve, any experience with REM finishing of an internal engine part? And if so, are there gains worth the effort?
Yes. I don't do much of it right now.
Okay.
REM is obviously really good on stuff. I mean, the only thing that you're ever going to see REM on is crankshafts. You could probably, because the valves are coated, so I'm sitting here thinking about it. Valves are coated, so you wouldn't do REM on that. Lifters are also, you know, have a DLC coating on them most of the time, so like a Black Mamba lifter. So most everything would already have coating, you know, a diamond light coating, which wouldn't require, which don't hold me to it. I would assume actually is better than an REM coating, so or REM finishing. So the only thing you would end up REM finishing is a crankshaft, and I've done that a few times, but most of the time I haven't. If it was a matter of if it made 10 horsepower more, I could care less.
Okay.
10 horsepower on 3,000 or 4,000 is nothing. You can't even realistically measure that horsepower. So some things are it's just a matter of if it was naturally aspirated, if it's NHR Pro stock and we're hunting for 10 horsepower, that's different. If it's hunting for horsepower in any of the turbocharged, supercharged stuff, that's not what we're doing. I am making stuff live. Something that makes another extra 10 horsepower just really isn't worth it. If it was a matter of longevity, something like that, you know, that's all cool, fine. REM is good, is worth it in engine parts. Probably not. Rear end stuff, bearings, other parts like that, and the chassis, yeah.
I know NASCAR uses it in the differentials.
Yeah, you do it in third member stuff and the bearings all in there. That's why I say anything in chassis related, that's really more beneficial than the engine, in my opinion.
Here's one. This is a guy I see on YouTube. He does some porting. Yes, Tim. Steve keeps it real and doesn't sugarcoat anything. My hat's off to you, Steve.
Oh, thank you.
And that's a fact. There's no doubt about that. You know, that's why I like the way you do things. You're like me, direct. I say it the way it is, and that's it. You know, you move on. Make a mistake, you move on. Let's see. Here's one. Ripple. Would love to have some SM on my valve covers. Well, Steve sells parts, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you sell those parts.
Actually, depending on what it is, sometimes we do. I'm not a real big fan of selling just valve covers with my logo on them because then people assume that I made the engine or built the engine. Sometimes we do, especially if we sell a complete kit or sell a bunch of parts. So a lot of times we'll sell them valve covers, especially LS because they have a lot of LS stuff. But anything's possible. Easiest way to get SM on your valve covers is to have me build an engine.
And this brings up another topic, and I want to say this during our video because one of the things that we talk about being outspoken. If you look at his website where it says contact us and roll down to his rants, or I think it's called that, where he talks about stuff with, the guy in the basement watching Warcraft who sells parts versus the guy that builds engines and makes parts. The thing I want people to understand, I don't think we're going to get any of that, but Steve's not in the business for you to call him up and ask him, hey, what do you think I need to do for this turbo I got from eBay to put it on my, whatever, big block Chevy or whatever. Mm-hmm. And to put that on your website, I mean, you're just telling people, look, I'm a busy man. I have to feed my family and my employees' families. So I'm not going to waste time unless you want to do business with me. I just don't have the time. Time is up. Go ahead.
I'm actually a little bit nicer than that, but it really boils down to, I like to help people and I don't mind helping people. My problem is I think, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I know I have a customer base of over 3,000 people right now.
Wow.
I
saw your phone.
Yeah. If we have, with all the people that call me literally worldwide, I cannot answer everybody's question. And so I really had to put a stop to that because it's like, you guys are going to drive me into bankruptcy if all I did is sit here and talk to you about it. I can't do that. I'm sorry. You just have to understand. Yep. And so I still will, for like channel members and some other people, I'll try to always make sure I answer some questions. And if it's possible, and if they're a customer, I always answer questions. If they're not, then I really got to weigh things out. And if it gets into a conversation that's more than a couple minutes, I just can't do it. I mean, they're not the only one. I have thousands of people. It's emails. It's stupid. I have people try contacting me on Facebook, on WhatsApp, on Instagram. They DM me on everything. Then Facebook, YouTube comments. I mean, emails, and then phone calls. I mean, it's just insane how much people want me to help them. And I don't like I said, I don't mind the help. Usually it gets me going just a little bit because it does irritate me when somebody gets all upset and calls me the man or whatever. I've changed because I'm not dropping everything I can to help them figure out their junkyard 5.3. Well, I don't do junkyard 5.3s. I don't have any parts for junkyard 5.3s. I don't do anything with them because it doesn't even fit my business model. If you want to do it, great. But I'm sorry, I don't have the time to help you figure out how to do something that you're not going to pay me to do. You don't ask your doctor to tell you how to perform surgery on yourself. You don't tell your doctor ask your doctor how to tell your buddy how to do surgery on yourself, but people want me to do it, So and it's getting a little bit better. I mean, although there's a new round of people that are asking me stuff, but like I said, I'm a little bit nicer than that, but sometimes you have to drive the point home of to scare some of the people away that are really just going to waste your time. There's some people that do that. Other people aren't trying to waste my time, but there are other people that just really figure that I owe them.
I got to say, I'm damn lucky then that you took my phone call. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Here's a good one for you. Steve, do you ever do any offshore boat motors?
Yep, I did. I have, I will, I can, I do a little bit, but most of the offshore guys are really nichey, and I understand exactly what's going on with the motors, with the engines. I understand all that, clearances, what parts work, what parts don't, what's capable, what's not capable. But since I'm not in that particular industry and I'm not at the events, I don't really get much traffic on any kind of powerboat stuff.
Okay.
We have a limited hydroplane deal that we're working on that we have really good stuff on. That they're working on getting working on going through the sanctioning body to get legal because it's the EFI version. But you know, you can do that stuff. It's not a big deal. But it is the customer base there is most of the customer base there figures if you don't own a skater, then you probably don't know how to work on one. So skater's a big
cigarette boat or something.
Like 50-foot boat, you know, kind of deal.
Yeah, I don't know how to skate at all.
Well, skater's the name brand of the boat, but yeah.
I was the guy that had to have the double bladers when I was like 10. And after I saw the guys with the hockey skates and I said, all right, it's time to go to the lawnmower and work on that thing.
Yeah.
Andy from Unity Motorsports Garage. Good to see you all tonight. Thanks, Tim and C, for being on DBG. And yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. You know, make sure you like us, subscribe to both of our channels, although most of them are probably already on your channel, and share this. You know, this is information. We haven't even got into any tech stuff, and we never talked about a time limit, and we'll know when things are time to cut it down. I think it'll just show up naturally. So thank you for that, guys, for being here. Great interview, Tim. Thank you. Steve did a cam for my big block Ford 598 with twin 98s. We'll be at Sick Week next month. See you there, Steve.
Oh. What his name is? I usually am relatively decent with names. I don't remember faces. Well, let's see here. I can remember names most of the time, but sometimes the faces and names don't associate real well. But yeah, I'd be curious because there's not a whole lot of big block Ford 598 twin deals I've done out there, so I'm not sure who that would be.
But do you find that you remember people's engines better than their faces? Like
yeah.
Combo, boom, you know what the clearances are, what you put on, what injectors. Okay. Yeah,
pretty much.
Let me see who. Oh, okay. Here he says this. I think it was 2018.
Yeah, so you're getting a little while ago, but I'd probably remember the name if he gives it.
Maybe he'll, they can type back, so maybe he'll type something back on there. Let me see. Well, this is interesting. I don't know. This might hit home. With the passing of Dan Jessel, do you have any good memories of him? Did you work with Dan?
Nope, I didn't know Dan Jessel at all.
Okay.
So he's a little more of one of the founding, what I would call like the founding fathers of motorsports. I mean, he's one of the originals. I mean, he's OG. So he was before me, so I didn't know very much. Didn't have any real contact with Dan Jessel at all.
I have a lot of, I don't know, maybe if you do, if you look at your demographics, I have a lot of subscribers from Australia. The Cleveland was only made from 70 to 74, and then the tooling went to Australia, and they made it up until like 81 or 82. So it's a big motor over there. But this guy's Yanks, he's on there all the time, says hi, Tim and SME from Australia. So thanks, guys, from down under. We appreciate it.
See, he's got Predator carburetors on it, dual Predator carburetors on his.
Yeah, there it is. I see it there. Yep.
Yeah, don't see that very often.
No, I have another buddy that's all that guy races. Those variable Venturi Predators. I've never ran them. Some guys say they're the best carburetor since sliced bread. Some guys hate them.
Yeah.
You don't do any carbureted work, really, do you? It's all fuel injection.
Not anymore. That's how I originally started with the blow-through carburetor. So everything I was doing was blow-through carburetor until I started making the switch over to EFI. So now everything is EFI, and I do very minimal amount of blow-through carburetors. But the blow-through carburetors have they still have a really nice area, a little niche where they fit in real well, like in this 1,000 or 800, 1,000, 1,200 horsepower, maybe up to 1,400, 1,500 horsepower. They got a real nice little sweet spot. They just work really well right there, and they're easy. But anything over that, I really try to get people into EFI it's a safety factor at that point.
Hey, Steve, can you build me a nitrous motor?
Nope, nitrous sucks.
I I loved hearing that.
Yeah.
I like the here you go. Steve was one of the nicest guys you will ever meet. He is a true Christian gentleman. Thanks, Steve.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. I actually appreciate that more than other comments. So thank you.
You know what? And I am too. This little thing says, keep the faith, baby.
Yep.
That's what I think of, you know? I don't talk a lot about it, but definitely there's only one guy that helps me and keeps me on the right course.
Mm-hmm.
Without him, I'd have nothing, let me tell you. I guess let's talk about Mullet, because that's kind of what, you know, that engine kind of turned me on to you and him. I watch his channel here and there, but by watching you take that engine apart in pieces, it gave me such an appreciation for what you do and what that engine can handle. I mean, that thing has got some power, man. 57, I think, pounds of boost pounded on that thing.
Yeah, actually, I was corrected on that. It's not 57 pounds boost. So somewhere along the line, I got confused on that. But Garrett still says it's in the low 50s, but it wasn't 57. So it was somewhere near there. Regardless, it's making more boost, more horsepower than what I intended it to ever make.
You know what? I don't know how to say it. It is what it is, you know? It can't all be perfect. And that's what I like about it. If you're not right, you're there, you admit it again. Hey, I wasn't right, perfect. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. No, it's no big deal.
Thank you. I see a lot of your stuff is all methanol. And I saw that Tom Bailey said something about, you know, the things he learned from Drag Week. I think it was like cooling and charging. Do you remember him saying that?
No, but I mean, it's basically true. I mean, the number one thing on Drag Week is cooling, but mechanical valve train. It's a valve train killer. Oil temperature, water temperature, transmission temperature, excessively high, real common. So you just have to have a really good cooling system, which includes oil coolers.
So the methanol, because it does cool, runs cooler. You know that.
You can't drive them on methanol. You can't have a big enough fuel cell to drive it on methanol.
And I saw in the boost wagon, you know, where you had that switch you push and it goes from pump gas to methanol. Am I right?
Yeah. So we drive all those cars on regular pump gas and then just race them on methanol. Yep. So it's a dual fuel system is what we call it.
Now, Mullet runs aluminum rods.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on aluminum rods on the street? You know, I was always heard back in the day, oh, you only get 100 runs, you can't drive them on the street. It all seems to be hogwash when I hear all this stuff from you.
Yeah, I mean, we almost all of the Drag Week engines that I do are aluminum rod deal. So including my own, every Tom's has always been an aluminum rod deal. Well, I take it back. 1.0 still has a steel rod, but that's on gas. So anything that I run on methanol will have an aluminum rod in it. And they, you know, Garrett's probably Cletus has got the most amount of time, you know, 3,000 miles, 150 plus passes, exceeding its horsepower limit, and rods were hanging in there great. I mean, so if you're never the tune-up is what kills rods. The drive, cycle life, maybe I don't know if they die at 10,000 miles or 100,000 miles, or I don't know. But I now know that they'll go 3. So, you know, 3 and make a lot of horsepower. So confident there. And we always end up, I always end up replacing them after every Drag Week, just because it's just maintenance at that point. It's like, why take the chance for a, you know, $1,700 part? Just put new ones in and be done with it, you know.
And that engine runs 904 lifters. Am I right?
Yeah, 904.
Why not 937 keyway stuff?
Because I'm not a fan of keyway lifters. The keyway lifter is fine in a drag race application. The problem is the way keyway lifters oil. They do a keyway and a bush lifter now, so that makes it better. So it doesn't have a needle bearing. But typically it's got to be in a bushing. The bushing is typically goes all the way through the oil galley, and it blocks off the oil galley, so it has a little machine groove around the outside of a really thin bushing that's supposed to allow all the oil past that bushing, oil the lifter, and then go to the next one. Well, I think that sucks. So I'd rather have a whole bunch of oil to the lifters and have a whole bunch of oil to the valve train. So I prefer to do that with a regular tie bar, standardish lifter instead of a keyway. So there's little inherent issues with keyway stuff, and if a keyway lifter fails in the bore, you're not getting it out. You're just not out the top. At least I can most all the time. If we had a lifter fail with a tie bar lifter, I'm able to get in there and yank it out through the top and put a new pair of lifters in. We don't have that happen very often anymore. But if you have a keyway style lifter fail, it's a real bother to fix it. And it doesn't oil the way I want them to oil.
Okay. There you have it, boys. You don't need keyway lifters. You're good with 904s.
Yep.
What lifters do you like the best?
Right now we use the Morels are probably my favorite lifter. They Morels, Iski, and the Morels fit my SMX engine. So that's what all of my SMX engines have Morel lifters. Period.
Got it.
Yep. And that still is that's an unlimited engine, and I still put a 904 tie bar lifter in it because it lives, it runs, it does everything it needs to do, makes as much horsepower as you want to do, easy to service, and not really expensive either.
157 people watching this right now, Steve.
Sure.
It's nice. Thanks, guys. Steve Morris, can you use the bore head setting fixture to set the groove tool or your new throttler?
Grooving tool must be referring to the receiver groove in the block is what I would assume he's talking about.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yes, it does. That is how you set it.
What's the I think it was you that pulled out the hoop from the head by welding onto it, I think. Did you weld onto it and pull it up?
Yeah, I didn't remember I showed that, but yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, you TIG because they're pressed in there, so you just TIG the rod on, and you just need to let it bond itself to it. So you just hit it with heat and weld itself on, and you just yank the thing up.
Is there a difference between, like, from what I know, old school wise, they put O-rings on that. The Boss 429 had O-ring cylinder heads. Is the O-ring the same thing that the hoop, or are they something different?
No, the O-ring is literal round wire. So you'll machine a groove into the cylinder head and you put round wire into it. Well, a hoop is a one-piece ring, so it's machined out of a piece of tubing, full round tubing, and it is mine are 085 tall, so 85 thousandths tall. 65 thousandths of it gets machined into and pressed into the cylinder head, and then the top portion of it that goes through the head gasket, which would actually be like this. So the top portion of it, this is all up in the head, and the little round portion at the bottom is what presses into the receiver groove like that, and that is sticking out 20 thousandths. So 65 thousandths into the cylinder head and 20 thousandths protrusion, and that presses through the head gasket into the receiver groove like that.
So the head gasket is pushing against that.
Yeah, through it. So the primary difference is it's machined up into the cylinder head, so it's not the problem with like a 041 wire is the most common wire for an O-ring. So 041 wire, you can only make the groove depth 20 or 25, and that's just enough to get the wire in there without the wire falling out, and then you don't have as much protrusion. But it doesn't have anything that really captures the wire. But when we machine these hoops in there, it's it's square groove, square hole pressed in. It just happens to have the 20 thousandths of material sticking up like that.
I saw you doing that on that Ellis block.
Yeah.
When you're using the rottler, cutting that in. I think you only went like 15 thousandths or something.
Yeah, that's receiver groove. So you don't put them into the block. You put the hoops into the cylinder head.
Yep,
You can put them into the block if you want to. But if there's ever a problem, it's a lot easier to fix the cylinder head than it is to fix the block. So we typically like to have the hoop, everything go into the cylinder head because it's easier to repair.
Okay, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I watched you doing like honing a block with a torque plate. Mitch, like the guys I know, it's like I know people in your shop. Alex, Mitch, I don't know how many guys are there. Maybe 6 or 7.
7. And then me. Yep.
Because I only see the couple that are on that, doing the work there that you see. And but I noticed you were honing a block with a torque plate, which is common.
Yep.
But you only had it on one bank. Is that normal to do? Someone told me once, they need to do it on both banks. Is that true or false?
False. I mean,
okay.
People can argue that out if they want, but
sure.
I'm telling you, I've never seen a difference in between having a torque plate on the other side of the motor, which is really isolated from the current side. We do, obviously, we'll torque the mains. We'll have a torque plate on it with gasket, proper length bolts or studs, trying to simulate it as best as possible. But I've never seen, if you're honing this side of the motor and then this side of the motor over here needs a torque plate on it. I mean, it has to transfer a lot of stresses all the way through the block, all the way down through here, and then all the way back up into here to make this thing move.
Okay. You ain't gonna notice it.
It's a good theory, but it doesn't prove out in reality.
Nice, thank you. Block-wise, all your stuff that you have, SMX, SML, all that stuff is all aluminum blocks. Do you do any cast iron blocks or CGI stuff?
Yeah, well, don't do a whole lot. Well, don't do a ton of compacted graphite anymore.
Okay.
That's a little bit of a niche-y block.
Yeah.
Because most of the higher horsepower stuff was we need to get into a billet aluminum because we couldn't really use. Nobody wants to have the weight of a CGI block.
Right.
So nobody wants to have a 300-pound block. Nobody wants to put an extra 200 pounds on the nose of their car to make that kind of horsepower. But I do a ton of iron stuff. I mean, probably the vast majority of the stuff we do is iron blocks. We just don't do a ton of CGI blocks.
Okay.
That compacted graphite is hard to come by right now. That's kind of, last I knew, that was just kind of a dart thing. And at least last year, I think they were a year and a half out if you ordered one with CGI.
What do you think is, there's a big debate over aluminum blocks and let's say cast iron blocks. Obviously, they say there's a little bit of loss of horsepower with aluminum versus cast. What's your experience with that?
Cast iron is always better. It's just heavy,
right?
And not repairable.
Okay.
So in a pro modified situation, big horsepower stuff, it's there really is no other option that's viable. Like I said, nobody's going to put another 200 pounds on the front of their car just to make it iron. Plus they're not making making an iron block is not easy. So the casting process, I mean, there's a reason why there really is only a couple companies that make iron blocks, because it is not easy.
Yeah, that's true.
So that means that they're limited. You're not going to get there is no pro modified motor that is a legit pro modified motor that is iron block, because that would mean that it's just a big block Chevrolet. Okay. They don't make, nobody is making limited runs on iron blocks for a pro mod Hemi or my SMX or anything else that's really made to do something like that, because there's not enough production time for it, not enough production run. they couldn't make any money, so they're never going to do it. So I don't even have an option of an iron block in most of the stuff like that. My SMX or my SML, a Pro Mod Hemi or Top Fuel Hemi. I mean, there's no option for it. You know, so don't even think about it, and doesn't really need it. Would it be better? Yes. Does it need it? No.
Where do you start thinking about going to a billet aluminum, going from cast aluminum to billet? What horsepower do you look at?
In billet stuff, I'm sorry, in big block Chevrolet stuff, you'll be in that 3,000 horsepower is max that I like to see on a cast block, because cast block, cast head, because just like on Cletus's deal, Cletus is making a little bit more than that right now. In fact, he is making more than that. Has to be just by the math. So he's making more than that, and I've told him that it is at the magic point where they just crack parts. They crack, they break. It's just not built to take that kind of load.
Okay.
So anything above that, now that's in a big block Chevrolet. In an LS, 2,000 horsepower is the magic number on LS stuff. Sometimes they'll last forever. I get some guy that gets his panties all bunched up and will tell me that, no, I've got one that's been running for 35 years and has, 5,000 miles on it every year, and I make 2,500 horsepower and I've got 15,000 passes on it. Never had a problem. Good for you. That's cool. But every time that we try doing it, they eventually break pretty quick. So in that application, we actually do suggest a iron block for LS if they're going to make over 2,000 horsepower. Or you get into my billet block, which is capable of 3,500 horsepower plus.
What's that Boost Master make? 4,500?
Yeah, it will. We're not at that power level yet. So we've been on the 653 pass.
Yep.
That was at 50 pounds of boost at with room to go, and because it's the car doesn't front half very well right now, so I'm still working through that. And we're running about a tenth faster than that in the eighth right now at 50 pounds of boost. Actually at 40 pounds of boost right now. So we're going 420s at 40 pounds of boost.
Like, what's the most boost you ever seen on an engine?
Oh, I know there's guys out there that, well, in a gasoline engine, that's one thing. Diesel engine stuff is totally separate.
Yeah,
My SMX stuff, Bailey runs 70. We'll run 70 pounds of boost in it on my SMX with twin 102s. And I know some guys that are pretty gung-ho in unlimited classes that'll run 90 to 100 pounds of boost. But it's not like those things double up on horsepower or something. So it's a very diminishing return. So there's a nice part in the map of a compressor map where it makes a lot of horsepower per pound of boost, which just means it moves a lot of air. And then as it goes past that part of the map, it starts going over on the right side of the map. And then in the right side of the map, it starts running out of air, I call it. So it gets really super inefficient. It'll build boost, but it heats up the air so much that the boost is no good, basically. So where that engine at 60 pounds of boost might make 4,500 horsepower, at 80 pounds of boost, another 20 pounds of boost, it might maybe make 5,000. I mean, it makes another 500 horsepower for the next 20. And then if you ran it up to say 90 pounds of boost or 100 pounds of boost, it might make another 100 horsepower. So I mean, it gets really diminishing returns. The efficiency of the turbos just really drops off a lot.
Thank you for that. It's a good explanation, and I think this will lead right into it. How much exploring of 60 millimeter, 70 millimeter, 80 millimeter, or bigger camshafts have you been involved with? Where are the greatest advancements in valve train today? So it's kind of a two-part question. How much?
My SMX stuff is 65 millimeter. The Pro Mod Hemi stuff is 70 millimeter. Never seen an 80 millimeter yet. there's some practicalities. You can't fit a 65 or 60 millimeter camshaft in the vast majority of engines. It needs to have a real tall center line or distance in between crankshaft and camshaft center line. You got to have a lot of room there because the core is so big, it hits connecting rods. It has a lot of problems like that. So it's not very practical. The camshaft rigidity is always better. Is it needed? I would totally doubt that a 60 millimeter would be any worse than a 70 millimeter wouldn't be any better than a 60 millimeter. I don't think you could prove that to me. That is really hard to come up with. There's some math involved in the lobe profiles and how it actually actuates the diameter of the lobe, the base circle of the lobe, basically, and how it runs a little smoother. So I mean, there's a little bit of math there involved, but in practicality, what does it really do? Probably next to nothing. It's 65 millimeter in my stuff. In my all LS stuff, every LS engine in the world is 55 millimeter. So, and there's no reason to go to 60 millimeter in a LS or 65 millimeter. I can't, that is just a waste of time and money, in my opinion. And then my SMX is 65 millimeter, but I might actually go back down to 60 millimeter because I'm working on a roller bearing for it. And so there's some other things. There's so much of what we do is, there's a really good theory, but how do you make it work and be practical in an engine? And that gets to be the problem. So sometimes I run out of practicality and I can't make it work, physically work.
Yeah.
Yep. So the greatest advancements in valve train today, well, honestly, the
Springs.
the best advancement really would be like free valve technology from Koenigsegg, but until that gets cheap and filters its way down to peons like me, it's way out there. I mean, it's just,
what is it?
Free valve stuff, free valve technology.
Oh, 3-valve.
Free.
Oh, free. I don't know what that is.
There's no camshaft. There's no springs. It's basically a pneumatic.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about.
Opening valve.
Yep. I've seen that before. I heard about it.
Electronic pneumatic opening valve.
Now, you said something before earlier about, well, you're going to miss 10 horsepower. You're never going to know the difference. When do you know the difference? 20, 25? When you're making that much horsepower? Can you answer that?
But the thing is the I guess, I mean, we'd be looking at a 3,000 horsepower motor. Well, 1% is 30. Okay,
yeah.
It's pretty hard unless you have a $1 million or $2 million dyno. It is really hard to pick up, be repeatable and accurate with less than 1%. So in our reality, it's almost impossible to measure and be repeatable and have it, to do really good data on something like that in less than 1%. So 3,000 horsepower is anywhere in the 20, 25, 30 horsepower is like, I can't even really count that out. I mean, I'll make an identical dyno pulse, and if it's the same number, I'm thinking like, wow, that's like really weird. What's going on? That's different, because it's almost always 10, maybe 15, 10, 20 horsepower different every single pull if I never change anything. And that's just because of I don't have a $2 million dyno. So that kind of stuff costs a lot of money.
I called him when we were talking the other day. I said, well, I got this motor. I want a dyno. It makes 600 horsepower. He's like, well, my dynos, what do they start at 2,000 horsepower?
Well, I mean, I can dyno down there, but my resolution is not very good. So I have to have in order to do the big engines, I have a 3,000 foot-pound load cell. So that's what's measuring torque. Okay. So in order to measure torque on a 3,000 foot-pound load cell, all the electronics in these load cells are 0 to 5 volts. So you have 3,000 divided by 5, So your resolution is 3,000 divided by 5 versus 1,000 foot-pound load cell, which would be 1,000 divided by 5.
Okay.
I got 3 times less resolution in mine. So it just makes all these little things of, 10, 20, 30 horsepower get harder and harder and harder to find, because I need to measure these really big numbers. Sometimes the smaller numbers and little comparative small numbers are really hard to come up with because my resolution gets bad. Hence a $2 million dyno.
Right.
So if somebody wants to buy me a $2 million dyno, I'm more than happy to do that for you.
And you know what? I have your address. I can put it down here so it can be delivered right to you.
Send it over. Yep.
How about this one? Who has the best Ford block for big power? Next question.
Believe the current answer actually is nobody. So I literally just talked to John Kazi last weekend.
Yeah.
I was at a seminar and John was there, and I was asking him, and I was actually hunting for parts for a customer, and hunting that wanted me to do another big block Ford, and you can't get blocks right now. So there's no iron blocks out at all, really. And then there's the eliminator block, according to John, is, might be fine for 2,000 horsepower, but they're pretty marginal in a 3,000 or more deal. The big Ford that I just had on the dyno here a little while ago was that was a CNC. Is it CNC or yeah, CNC block that Carol he died, and I guess that block's not available anymore either right now. So, and then you had the AR block, and you had some other ones, but and there's nobody doing a big billet water jacketed block. I'm not even sure if there's anybody doing a big billet block for them right now. There probably is, but not that I can think of off the top of my head.
You don't build a lot of Fords though, do you?
Oh, probably like 10% of my stuff is probably is Fords. I have some stuff through there right now, but I'm more than happy to build them. I don't care. I'll do big block Fords, big block Chryslers, Hemis, wedge motors. I'm working on a lot of stuff right now, so.
Well, I'll call Alan Root tomorrow. I want to get him back on the channel. We'll see what he's got to say.
Yeah, is he still doing anything? Because I haven't found those blocks or.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of work, and I had him on the channel. Actually, he was on the phone. I think I called him and talked to him on the phone and did an interview with him.
Oh.
So, I don't know if he's got something going on. He may. Who knows? I'll ask him and see, because everyone's always wondering about big block Fords because no one makes them. Ford doesn't make them. Eliminator's done. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jerry Whaley, on the Mullet engine, if you used a compacted graphite block, could you turn up the boost to offset the weight to make it worth gain?
Probably not, because the next thing to go is the cylinder head. So pretty soon it ends up being a completely different engine. In a big block Chevrolet platform, that thing is topped out. That thing is king wheel. It is making a lot of horsepower, more than it should. The best way of making more horsepower is go to my SMX.
Here you go. Now, here's one coming up. This is what this guy was asking about, those valve covers. That's what I meant. Like for him to do me an engine.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
How does someone get a hold of you, Steve? What's the process?
Oh, you can call the shop. You probably won't end up talking to me. You probably end up talking to Alex. Or you can shoot us an email. A lot of times I'll get those. And it depends on what it is. So I will do NA engines. I usually end up being pretty high price for an NA engine. comparatively speaking. I won't do nitrous engines because I don't know anything about them. So I just tell you that out front.
Yep.
That is not my lane. I don't know. You go, if you want a really big one, you can go to Pat Musey or something. But outside of that, that's just not my deal. So I don't know. Then you got if it's smaller motors. Generally we're 800, 900, 1,000 horsepower is like the minimum deal that we normally do. So it's got to be some kind of boosted engine. That we'll be more than happy to do something like that for you.
So there it is. Email him, call him, talk to Alex, get it done. Thanks, Whipple. Now, we were talking about this guy. This guy, now I know who he is. He's actually a buddy of mine. Frank.
Oh, I know.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's good to see you, Frank. I'll text you later. And he's been a subscriber of mine and a buddy of mine for a long time. And the funny thing is, you told me today, you said, what'd you tell your son? Oh, I'm going to do a live chat with DragBoss Garage. And he goes,
he's already subscribed to you.
Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate it.
Yep, there you go.
I got one subscriber. And we've been doing this for an hour. We got 214 people. That's a lot of people on a live chat. When you see, if you watch the YouTube stuff and watch live chats, that's a good crowd. So there's a lot of interest here, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, sweet.
Steve Morris from Eric McMahon. Do you ever use cylinder combustion analyzer equipment to optimize valve events, header lengths, ignition timing, etc.? Would it be worth it to buy a machine like that?
I have a machine. So I have a combustion analyzer. It is combustion analyzing is really practical in like a cup application or something that has a very long runtime. So in order to collect data properly, I would need to, these are just ballpark numbers, okay? So I haven't messed with this thing for a long time. I have it literally sitting in a box because I tried using it, tried figuring stuff out. And the data that it needs is, for example, is like 10 seconds at each RPM. Okay, that's a big freaking deal. That really is not possible. So, and don't hold me on the number. It might not have been 10. I mean, it's been a few years since I looked at it. But yeah, I mean, I spent like $12,000 on this deal and thought this is going to be really sweet. This is the way, and how I can move forward. But the practicality of how it needs to collect data and how it needs to work is you're basically, they could figure out how to use it in a top fuel motor, but you need to hold the top fuel motor for 10 seconds instead of 3. Well, it can't run past freaking 3 seconds. It breaks it at 4 or whatever. You know what I mean? And our engines are just, and this is per RPM. So, I mean, that's why they work really awesome in a cup car, really awesome in something endurance things, not as much practicality in a big drag race style engine. We're making a lot of horsepower. I mean, if we did a naturally aspirated 1,000 horsepower and under, yeah, you could run this thing all day long. You could really learn some stuff and mess around your camshafts. You could figure out a lot of stuff, no doubt about it. But in a big boosted world like we're at, really struggle to collect data fast enough. Now, maybe they got some really cool stuff. Maybe they got it all figured out that I don't know about right now. That's possible. But there is still so much data collection and so much time it takes to collect that data and abuse engines. Somebody's got to pay for that. And currently, we don't lack horsepower. Most everything that we do is I have over 1,000 horsepower left on tap in my own car. I can't use all the horsepower I got. So very rarely is there any car out there. you have to keep in mind they're using every class, unless you get into some outlaw stuff, is somehow, some way limiting the boosted cars because they already make too much horsepower. So what are we trying to do? Make more horsepower? Well, they got so much horsepower, they're limiting them and restricting them. So what would we gain by it? You know what I mean? So horsepower is not the problem. We're just trying to make stuff live and make it better and more duration, or longer duration, longer life pieces. But sometimes the practicality of what we're actually working on isn't real viable right now. So it has a little bit of problem with the mechanical side, a little bit of it just doesn't. It's not practical for what we do, in my opinion. They might have some very new stuff where if I could figure out how to put a pressure sensor into a spark plug, make a pass, and come back with really good, clean data and really figure some stuff out, I'd be interested in that. That'd be pretty cool. But then you're talking about a pretty expensive, $15,000, $20,000 system in a car to analyze something that you're struggling trying with power management just to get the car down the track. So I mean, it gets to be so much information, so much stuff, you might not even ever use it.
Okay. Now you're saying you got 1,000 horsepower on tap that you're not even using for the Boost Master. What's the limiting factor? Drivetrain? Why can't you?
No, I mean you gotta get this stuff down the track. So my car. What's that?
Drivability?
Drivability. I mean, so in any of these Pro Mod cars, so my car only goes 113 60 foot.
Yeah.
It needs to go 108, 109. And if it was really, really fast, like it should be, I mean, it would go, 10, 101, right around there. And that would go like 270 at the 330, 275, something like that right around there. That's what I would need to go to be able to pour a bunch of power to the backside to go like a 590 in the quarter. Until I get there, to like make up that 500ths in the 60 and make up a 10th in my 330, I'm not going to bother putting all the power to it. It's just torturing the engine and getting pretty minimal amount of return. I'll get a bunch of mile an hour, but I'm not going to get a bunch of ET until I can figure out how to make this car get up on the tire and go 10 something 60 foot and 270. Well, I can probably do it with a 280 something in a 330, but like 281, 282. Yeah.
Crazy speed.
Yeah.
They almost got Leroy in the 6s. I was watching that,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have anything to do with that car yet, but yeah.
Well, you will probably.
Yeah, possible.
Steve Morris from Eric McMahon again. Can the new Rottler boring machine be configured to pour inline valve heads?
It can. It's not that type of machine. Obviously, I would just use the Centroid machine for doing that. I mean, we already have cylinder head porting and block machine in the Centroid. So the Rottler really is bought it to be solely a block machining center where it's boring, decking, lifters, cam tunnels or main tunnels, cam tunnels, normal finish work of blocks. And so, and resurface cylinder heads. I'm supposed to have a cylinder head fixture for it too. So simple, easy, general machine work, do it fast, do it really accurately instead of having to put it in the Centroid, which is over there porting cylinder heads. So I already have the machine put to port cylinder heads, but you could do that with this, but you wouldn't want to do, it's also a dry machine, which means it's not an enclosed cabinet machine. So you really don't want to port heads on something like that, because porting heads, you would definitely need coolant. To do block work and stuff like we're doing, we don't use coolant.
I just learned that from one of your subs. I asked that question and actually they answered it for me.
Ah, okay, yeah. So yeah, no, don't use nobody's bored a block with coolant that I've ever seen. You can. Yeah. I have bored block. I'll have to backpedal on that. We bored blocks in the Centroid before, and that will use coolant. But 99% of the time, it's not needed. You just run it. It's cast iron sleeve or some form of iron, and you just run a boring head through it, and it's really minimal cuts. So it's not like we need coolant.
And when I watched that video, and let me give me a synopsis. But basically, once you put that block in that fixture, you do all the measurements, and you push the button, so to speak. You don't have to reset that block up again. It can go through each procedure.
Yeah.
One setup. Am I right?
Yeah. Once we've written the program for it, so
Yes.
we would do a tool change. So anything that we did with the fly cutter,
Yep.
it would be programmed be able to do, and then we do the boring head. Anything it can do with the boring head, it would do, vice versa. And then if we had another identical block, if it was a small block Chevrolet, and we had another small block Chevrolet, we just put it in a machine, hit the go button, and it would just do it. Yeah.
So when you put those measurements in or whatever, map it out or whatever, it's in there, and that's a record that you can use for other blocks of the same cubic inch. 350 versus 454.
Well, that's a different engine platform, but we're going from a small block to big block.
Right.
So that's a different program. So as far as bore centers, where the bores are supposed to be, over camshaft, crankshaft, center line, what the general deck numbers are, we have all that information in there. Basically, if we want to alter it, then we would alter it.
Okay.
Yeah. So the boring head is mechanically set. So we have to run the tool out to whatever size we want it with a setting fixture, and then it bores whatever size hole we want it to bore. The computer part of it is it's boring it in this location, this location, this location, this location. Yeah, the machine is handling that, but we have to set the size up ourselves.
Yeah, Frank Webb says it was drag week when that Dodge Hurricane Florence.
Was it 2018?
Yeah, 2018. I met Steve before at Beach Bend. He's very approachable and helpful. Do business with him.
Yeah, that's right, because we broke in 2016. Yep, that's right. So we didn't make 2016. 2018, we won and went through the hurricane. That's right. Oh, yeah. Yep, okay, yep. That's right.
There it is. He's very approachable and helpful. Do business with him. There you go. Thanks, Frank. This is one of my subscribers, John Salvatera. Thanks, John. Thank you, Steve, for your informative, interesting videos. Thanks for the interesting chat tip. So he gave us $20. And I tell people that are on my live chats, this is a lot of time to do this, especially for you with what you're doing. My little channel, whatever money I get, I split it with a guest. The rest goes in my DBG fund to help do my own projects. So I always hook up the guy that's helped me because you're taking time away from your family, your kids. So thank you.
That's fine, but you don't need to make anything right with me. That's no big deal.
Thank you. We guys down here in Australia use a lot of Steve's blow-through carb deals and advice many years back.
Yeah, we used to do a lot down, or like I said, we started out. At one point in time, well, as far as I know, I'm still the king of blow-through carburetors. So I know, and have pushed that stuff all the way to the max. I've done everything I've known what to do, and just ran into the wall of, okay, there is only so much you can do with this 4 holes,
right,
in fuel distribution. There's only so much you can do. So it was at that point, it's like, okay, I think it's just time to move on. And then I just help people to, like I said, that it has a really sweet spot, 1,500 horsepower and below. It's nice, works great, no problem. It's 1,500 and above. 1,500 to 2,000 gets really dicey. I won't even do them at 2,000 and above, even though I have. Okay. But I will guarantee you they will hurt parts. Somewhere they will hurt a cylinder, and then people are getting mad and want to try figuring it out. And it's like, the only figuring out is you need to put an injector on each port, period. That is the way you have to figure out really big horsepower stuff. We have to control fuel. And because the only thing that hurts these engines is fuel. Timing, sometimes if you're really out to lunch, you got to be really bad. But you run any one of these engines lean, and I guarantee you they're going to be hurt. You run a cylinder lean, it's hurt. Period.
So where are we talking compression ratio on this? You know, what's the average or the most you could go versus the least on a turbo application? I mean, you're not running turbos with 15-to-1. I wouldn't think, although I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, well, you probably could. It just narrows up your tuning window.
Okay.
So since all our stuff is drag and drive, so I have to drive it on pump gas. So we're not going to have a 12, 13-to-1 engine because I got to drive it, pull a trailer.
Yep.
So they get a lot of load on it. So you're not going to get away with that. So we'll be in general, I'm in that 10-to-1 range, 9.5, 10-to-1 range in general on just about everything. As far as being too low, there's not that I don't know of any negative consequence to having too little compression ratio, besides it just doesn't make power. Okay. But there's no negative consequence to it. The negative consequence to too much compression is that the tuning window gets much smaller. So you really got to be spot on your money to make a big compression stuff work. And you can 15-to-1 would be really high. I'm not sure I know of anything that's that high, but 13-to-1 is on methanol motors is fairly common. Probably get a little bit higher than that.
Thanks.
Yep.
Bob Racing 1017. I've been trying to rebuild an engine since October. Parts availability has been horrible. Have material issues impacted your business?
Yep. Yep, sure is.
You know,
I've been waiting for, well, that's probably more something else. But what I used to be able to get in 3 or 4 weeks can be easily 3 or 4 months, if not longer. So yeah, it's bad. I don't see it getting. Honestly, don't really. I don't know if it's going to get better or not. I'm leaning towards not.
Now we had talked yesterday about this, so someone might be on here. But we're looking for a couple of cammer 427 sock motor cams, and someone told me about LSM can grind them. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, LSM probably can.
Okay.
There's a really long story involved in that.
Yep. This is just for the guys that are on here. They're Ford guys that might know where there's a couple for me.
Yeah. You know, so we're looking for some cores that I could regrind. So
put the word out, boys.
Even if I had right now, I gotta wrap my head back around it just a little bit. Even if I had I need to set up the cylinder heads, so I need to do valves, valve heights, and everything else, and I can't do any of that until I have a camshaft in it. So that's why I'm really hunting for the camshaft, so I can at least proceed further with trying to figure out the rest of my valve train. Okay. So I physically do not have a camshaft on the property.
There's 212 people here, so someone might have one in their garage. So go back and look, guys. Justin Roop. Mr. Morris, will you talk about the Devel 16 development, please? That engine is one of the most coolest engines I've ever heard on YouTube. Wow.
Yeah. You don't know about the Devel 16?
Not yet.
Bummer. So the Devel 16 was that is a all billet V16 engine that I designed and built for for 3 brothers in Dubai.
Okay. Wow.
So it had 4 turbos. It was 700. It ended up being 785 cubic inch, and it made 5,000 horsepower with 4 turbos. So there's a lot of stuff that goes along with that. the first complete engine development that I had ever done. So they had what they did is they contacted me and they said, "Hey, could you build a 5,000 horsepower V16 engine?" Sure, no problem. I'll figure it out. And then I never heard back from them for about 2 years, I think it was. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they called up and said, "Okay, how much?" I said, "I don't know." Give them a shot of a big number that didn't end up being big enough. By the way, so so people know, something like that, that is $1 million deal.
Oh yeah.
It is astronomical. So it should have been $1 million deal. I didn't do it. But anyways, so agreed to do it and then started the whole process. It's a one-piece billet block. It's not 2 engines put together. It's one-piece billet block, one-piece billet crankshaft, one-piece billet camshaft. I have spares if you guys ever want to look at them. I don't have a spare block, but I do have a spare crankshaft and a spare camshaft, which is kind of neat. And then I used individual cylinder heads because it's much more practical to make 4 individual cylinder heads than it is to make one long cylinder head when you don't have to. So, I mean, aviation does that all the time. In fact, a lot of big engine type stuff from diesel, commercial to aviation, they would all do that with individual cylinder heads because it's not practical to do it otherwise. Then it was a little bit LS, or it was mostly LS based platform. Yeah. Had some big block Chevrolet platform to it, had some Hemi platform to it. So I'm combining and making things that I knew work together to make this V16 to make horsepower. So since my number one, what I was hired to do was make 5,000 horsepower, so I had to gear everything towards what I knew would work and live and make 5,000 horsepower. So that's where we started. There's a lot of stuff on that all over the internet. There's an article in Motor Trend on it. There's a bunch of stuff. Motor Trend came in and looked at it and did an article on it. So I mean, they've seen it. They did stuff, and then they had hired an engineer slash I can't remember his name either. He came from Italy, and he was tied in with with the other supercar companies over there. Yeah. And he came over to look at it and to see if it was real, see what was going on. And when he came in, he looked at it. We talked for a few hours, and he's inspecting the whole thing. And he goes, "I'm telling you," he goes, in his broken English, he goes, "You have done something really impressive for what you have here." And he's looking around, and he goes, if Volkswagen did this, he says that is a $20 million project in order to develop and get a engine done. He says that is at least a $20 million deal. He says, "You've done a really fantastic job. Well, let's see if it'll work." So I mean, work in the car and do everything it wanted to. So I delivered that engine in I think I delivered that engine in 2018, somewhere around there. And it's just pretty much gone dark ever since. So I don't know exactly what all's going on. I own the intellectual property. I own the production rights. But they're in another country. So whether I can enforce any of that kind of stuff, if they start building that or trying to do something to duplicate it again, I don't know. Car wise, as far as I know, the engine's never been in the car yet. It's been on the dyno. I've run through it. It is usable, drivable piece. Whether they have enough cooling in the car, whether they have enough radiator, I mean, whether the car is capable of using it. No car is capable of using the horsepower. The horsepower number is just is a useless deal. It's not usable. It's not a top fuel car, or even a pro modified car. It's just not. It's a supercar, so it's never going to be able to use that much horsepower.
Did you dyno it?
Yeah, that Dyno made 5,000 horsepower.
Damn, man. I must have been living under a rock or something. I just don't.
Oh, there's videos all over, and you can
I
see it. It's on my website too.
Okay, I'll have to check it
You
out.
have to go into Dyno videos, custom engine development.
426 Hemi. Does Steve have any interest in the factory stock showdown or factory X high end modern engines?
Well, well, I used to do an AAH program, so the Hemi Superstock program. I actually like that stuff. That's kind of neat. It's just not in my niche anymore because it's all that NA stuff. The right customer, I mean, I'll work on stuff. It just has to be able to pay. So I can't turn down really good paying work that's in my niche to do any kind of work that doesn't pay better than my niche work.
Right.
I can't turn one thing down to make less money.
Nope.
And then if you're talking about like the new stuff, so I'm probably, maybe I'm reading this wrong just because your name is 426 Hemi. You might not be talking about that. You might be talking about Gen 3 Hemi stuff. I do Gen 3 Hemi stuff. Trying to figure out if that's the market that we want to dip into or not. Currently, I don't have enough time to do a real good program on it, so we're just trying to figure that out.
There you go, 426 Hemi. Appreciate that question. Michael Caruso. Boost fixes everything, right?
Yes, it does.
There it is.
I know that I recognize that name. I think I've done some stuff for Michael.
Yep. I know him well too.
Oh, do you? Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Spoolin 272. Just wondering what corporate engine block designs you like and maybe use your own machining your engines. Thanks, Steve, for sharing your great engineering and knowledge.
I
mean,
obviously the big block Chevrolet is really good stuff. Probably the best bigger horsepower platform. And then actually probably maybe in big block Chevrolet, probably just because it's the most common, easiest to get parts for, easiest to do. If there's anything that's better, one that's better than another in a corporate like a factory block, I don't know, because everything I do is aftermarket block, so I really have to think about that. Ford probably has some really good stuff. I'm gonna mess around with it. I just had a customer ask me about the 7.3 Godzilla big block motor, the new stuff. So I think we might, if he wants us to do that, I think we might do one of those. So, maybe in the corporate factory style stuff, maybe, big block Ford might be, or, that 7.3 Ford might be big, because there isn't any big block Chevrolet anymore. So you're not going to have that. So, I mean, maybe the big block Fords.
Yeah, that'd be cool to see you take that on and see what you could do with that thing.
Yeah, of course it'd be boosted. I think it wants to make like, a couple thousand horsepower or something like that.
Yeah, just a couple thousand. No big deal.
I remember the first time I made 1,000 horsepower. I remember the first time I made 2,000 horsepower, and then 3,000 horsepower, and then 4,000 horsepower, and now 5,000 horsepower.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is it the horsepower king or boost king? I'm trying to figure it out. Oh,
no, there's a lot of guys that probably that have some really good stuff that makes really outstanding horsepower. I'm not the king of anything in all reality, but I just have a good niche, and I stay in my lane, and I just try to dominate my lane, and I don't mess with other people's stuff.
Nice. Good philosophy right there. There's only one king.
Yep, King Kings.
Yep, that's it. Old home guy. Steve, I enjoy your content. I'm a student of your YouTube channel, but I'm almost 60 years old, racing after retirement.
Great. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Listen here, old home guy. I'm like be 58 in another few weeks, so Yeah, I'm still racing too. Keep going. MCR engine. Steve, how do you structure the workflow in the shop? Some assemblers and a machinist to feed them work. Any workflow efficiencies to get all the work done? Thank you both, Steve and Tim. You're welcome.
No, I'm looking to figure that out. Currently, we suck. So my workflow efficiencies are just terrible. I am currently my biggest problem is that every job somewhere along the line, every job I touch, and I cannot touch every job, and I need to figure that out. But I'm really working on that. I'm trying to make that better. I just haven't gotten there yet. Some things have taken off so fast and just gotten so busy that haven't been able to focus on it. So that's one of the things I got Alex working on right now, actually, is really trying to focus on that and track employee productivity. Are we doing a good job? Can we do this faster? Can we do it better? That's why I buy machines. That's why I keep on reinvesting into the company, trying to make it better, and so we can get work done. I'm way farther behind than what I should be right now.
Do you find though with guys, and I don't know, I don't work in a machine shop, I work in emergency rooms, so it's a little bit different, but on one hand, it's similar. You know, I'm not a doctor, I'm a physician assistant. So there's a doctor there and myself. Now, if I need help, I go ask them. But for the most part, man, I just go. You know, whether it's strokes, heart attacks, any kind of trauma I can do, anything. You have to have that trusted man that you can not have to worry about your medical license or getting malpractice. In your case, let's say you have 5 guys. Is one guy only going to do one job, or do they rotate so they don't, you know, so they can all know, hey, Joe's sick today, we got to have someone do boring? I mean, everyone should be able to do everybody's job, I would think. Is that how you look at it?
Yeah, currently everybody knows how to do basically everything. So in the shop, and unfortunately, I had my main guy of the last 8 years quit on January 1st. So I'm down a guy right now and working on trying to train a guy. And then, so everybody pretty much in the shop, I want them to know machining. I don't have anybody, I don't have a block guy. I don't have a cylinder head guy. Everybody can go back there, and because I train everybody how to do everything that I can do. So, about the only thing that nobody does besides myself, and now Kyle my son Kyle is now coming in and doing dyno and tuning. So working with him, so training him up to do that, so he's able to do that. Otherwise, the other guys are all assembling or machining, or both, you know. So outside of Brock, he's my CNC guy. He stays in his little cubby hole back there and does CAD CAM and is making my billet heads and now billet blocks, and so he's the king wheel machinist back there. So he doesn't do any assembly stuff for me.
So do you think Kyle's going to take the reins someday?
Yeah, that's the whole plan. So, you know, we're pretty blessed that ultimately, you know, I don't think that Steve Morris engines will go the way of the dinosaur and just die out like a lot of shops do or can, if they don't have somebody to come along. So thankfully, at least so far, Lord willing, Kyle wants to take the reins and take over and do everything, and I'm more than happy to do that. So it'll be somewhere down the road, and I'll probably never leave. That's what would be nice about it, is that I do plan on building a race shop onto it, so putting another 5,000 square foot on, and then be a race shop and hub dyno, and, you know, pull the rig in there, and I'll have spots for the guys to work on their own cars if they want to, and I'll probably end up, my dream is someday I'll spend a bunch of time back there jerking around on stuff I want to do, and Kyle can be running the business.
You got goals, man, and that's what you need.
Yep.
That's how I live. Setting goals.
Yep.
Joe Blow. That's a unique name. Great chat again, Tim. Gotta like all the guests you get. Been watching Steve's channel too. I thank
Make
you
sure
and
you
Steve.
subscribe.
Yeah, please.
And
I
leave
need help.
comments. Yeah, leave comments. It helps out the algorithm.
It does, and that's a good question. I only have 13.5 thousand subscribers compared to 185. But you know what? I answer everyone I get. I take the time to answer them. And how do you answer all the questions you get?
Oh, I don't answer all the questions I get because
Okay.
I usually can't read all the comments. I mean, I think
Right.
there's probably I think on average we probably get between 500 to
Yeah.
500 to 3,000, 4,000 comments. Obviously, I can't read all of those.
Right.
And then if I find something that is interesting, I might be able to reply to it. And then if just FYI, if somebody if I reply to them and they reply back to me, it is so buried, I probably will never see the reply that you replied back to me. The only ones that I see that are easy to find because I get a separate notification for it is my channel members. So if you're a channel member, there's way less of those, and I get separate notification. I know who it is. I can respond back. I get a notification that they were, basically it's much easier for me to communicate with the channel members. So that's one of the reasons why I bid channel members is, hey, if you really are interested in wanting to talk, or you have some questions, and I'm more than happy to answer some reasonable questions, not how I rebuild my stock 5.3, but if you got some, hey, I got this, what do you think? Okay, that's cool. I'll give you some quick input and do that, and try to make sure I answer all those questions.
Nice.
Yep.
That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to join. I'll join your member thing so I can get involved in that, because I see there's videos I can't see because I'm not a member. So I want to.
Yeah, there's some on there, and we've been giving some stuff away to channel members. So I got a lot of stuff in the shop that I don't want in the shop, so I'm just giving it away to people. And
I better get in there.
Yeah, the only way that I know who people are you cannot get a list of subscribers. That is impossible. YouTube will not give you a list of subscribers, but I have a full list of channel members. So I can go through my channel member list and select a random person to win something, and it's like that, no big deal. But I cannot. There is no listing of subscribers and no listing of people that just leave comments.
Now on mine, I can tell you I have a whole list of subscribers. I can reel through them and see who they are.
You need to show me where that's at.
I will.
I've not ever seen where there's an actual list of subscribers.
Yep, I'll show you.
Yeah, I've not seen that.
Well, I showed you that thing last night. That's a little kind of a thing to have.
Yeah.
So thanks, guys. Big Perm Garage. I could always tell something was different about both of you guys and can appreciate it very much. Every good thing comes from our God and Father.
Love, yep.
Amen on that. That's the truth too. Thank you.
Right now I use MGP is what the ones that I've always used that I have had the best luck. I also use R&R connecting rods, and I have used some CP Carrillo aluminum rods. Never really used Bill Miller's. I used GRPs. GRPs are a nice rod too, but my preference typically is MGP R&R.
Thank you.
Yep.
Michael, Steve, the most conclusive connecting rod. I don't know that's Sussnet.
Yeah.
Not sure what that.
I think it's a compliment.
Thank you. That's all. We'll leave with that. Let's see. Mark Seaman, how important is rod ratio in one of your drag and drive engines in the 3,000 horsepower world? I always heard that rod to ratios don't mean anything, you know?
I'm a short rod guy. I think short rods are better than long rods. But there is, again, we run into some math parameters that sometimes you just have to use what you can make fit point blank. So let's take a 540 for example, and it doesn't matter if anything with a 4 1/4 inch stroke with like a short deck, which would be like a 9/800 deck height block. So that's typical big block Chevrolet. So that is every 540, or the majority of every 540 in the world ever built a 9/800 with 4 1/4 inch stroke, 4 or 500 bore. Well, you can fit a 6.385 rod in it really well. And that's as long as I'd ever want to get, because if I put longer in it, it does physically fit, but it pushes the piston pin up so high in the piston, it makes a very weak piston. So a 6.385 long rod on a 4.250 stroke has got a 1.280, it's either 1.285 or 1.265 pin height. So what that does is it starts getting the piston pin up into the third ring. And if I go any longer, it gets it up into the second ring. Well, you can't have it into the second ring. So then you'd have to move the second and top ring up. Well, you move the second and top ring up, and then all of a sudden the piston's a piece of crap and it breaks at 3,000 horsepower. 1,000 horsepower, don't care. 3,000 horsepower, I guarantee it breaks. So there's just math that's involved there. And then if I try to go any shorter than a 6.385 rod, then the problem gets to be is that it runs the piston pin into the counterweights. So then all of a sudden, so on the bottom of the stroke side, the piston comes down and gets right on top of the counterweight. And if I make the rod too short, then it literally pulls the pin through the counterweight, and then I got to cut the counterweight. And if I cut the counterweight, then I got to rebalance this thing, put like $600, $700, $800 worth of Mallory metal in it to make it all fit. So a lot of things are what we have to do just to make things fit. But in general, like I'm not super worried about a rod to stroke ratio. I'm more looking at, I need to have this piston be as strong as possible, so I know what the pin height needs to be. Then I try to match a connecting rod to fit into that. Sometimes it might, if it's a tall deck block, sometimes it'll get a little bit longer. If it's a short deck block, I get as short a rod as I can put in it without it crashing into the crankshaft.
Thank you. I noticed on Mullet's motor, when you're putting that back together, like what the wrist pin, or what's that held in? Is that a set screw with O-ring screws into that piston?
No, it's a pin button.
Pin button. Okay, I've never seen that.
Pin button. So it's just it's two spacers on both sides of the pin that keep the pin located in the center.
Okay.
And it has the bottom ring runs through those spacers, basically the buttons, and so the ring is actually floating in those pin buttons, but which is fine. It doesn't ever have a problem. They're really nice machine pin button for it, but it's getting to be a more preferable way of doing it because it supports that bottom rail.
Is that what you use on the SMX stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't used to because the SMX has a taller piston pin height because that's a 10-400 deck height block. So that particular engine, I have I think it's a 1.350, right around there, 1.350 pin height, but it has a large pin diameter, so that has a 1.094 pin in it versus a 990 pin. So the pin gets bigger, comes up into the pin, or the ring land. So there's a bunch. There's a whole bunch of things that you can't just say, oh, I want to do this because it affects this, that, this, and the other thing. So you have to, things got to all fit together. So it's always trying to figure out what's the best compromise, because I guarantee you something's getting compromised from what you want it to be.
Mark Baker, what causes the rods in your motor to destroy themselves?
So he's talking about the mass exodus of connecting rods.
Okay.
So that was, we sent it out. It's a material issue. So I know that the rod manufacturer that did those set of rods for me disagrees, but his answer was that the material is correct and perfect, and the design is correct and perfect. I just exceeded the design and material. So
you found the limit right there.
Yeah, So I found the limit. So therefore, it wasn't the correct material for my application, or it wasn't the correct design for my application, one or the other, because he said they were both correct, but I exceeded it. Well, then it wasn't correct.
There it is in a nutshell. I like it. Which comes to this question. We'll put it up there, but you just answered it for Jerry Whaley. Max Connect, what found about him? Information on it.
Yep.
Steve said he exceeded the horsepower rating of the rods. There's nothing wrong with them, just like we just said. Thank you for that. One question. Way up, dude. Does cheating still go on today, but hardly no one gets caught?
I don't know. It is. You'd have to be class racer to be cheating.
Okay.
So I don't do as much class racing work as what other engine guys do. So I'm sure it's probably not cheating. It's just not in the rules yet.
Bending the rules. There it is.
Yeah, it's not in the
Probably
rules.
happens all over. What's this here? JMR at Steve. Steve, what made you come up with a better LS block and head compared to OEM?
What made me come up with it was the deficiencies in what the engines were. So we already went over that. At that 2,000 horsepower area, you can't use the aluminum block. You know, move into the cast iron block. But then into that 2,500 horsepower area, these things are just head gasket killers because they only have 4 bolts per cylinder. So it doesn't matter what you do there. There was no GM engineer that ever designed that LS to make 2,000 plus horsepower. Period.
Right.
They didn't have that in consideration. They didn't care about that. That isn't in their deal. So we're still trying to use this OEM deal to make all this horsepower. Well, then, then some people will, and I'll do it too. We'll put 1/2-inch head studs in them. We'll do bigger head studs, but it still doesn't solve the problem. The bolt spacing is too far apart. You get bolts too far apart, and they don't have the proper clamping load, and they can't hold big horsepower. So that was my first thing. It's like, all right, I'm going to design something that is drag and drive worthy because that's my niche, that's my lane, and I want to make something that is better, like what my SMX is. It's like, okay, if I'm gonna make this billet block and billet heads, I'm gonna fix this head bolt issue, and instead of having 4 per cylinder, it depends on how you count them because they share 2. It's either 5 or 6, depending on how you count it. 1/2-inch head bolt holes that are symmetrically placed, not just 4 original ones with a couple extra studs. It's actually, I move and make it all into a symmetrical pattern and run the 1 head stud in through the intake port. So like what old, some of the old symmetrical port it would have been symmetrical port heads would have been out of Chevrolet. Or actually, I'm not sure. I don't think Fords would have ever done that because all Fords are 4 bolt heads. I don't think so. I don't think they ever did that on a Ford deal. Put a 5 bolt or 6 bolt head bolt pattern in them.
I don't know if the A460 bolt had that possibility.
No, A460 didn't. They had small head. They kept the same head stud location.
Yep.
They just added a couple small bolts on the ends. I'm talking about physically moving all the bolts around so they're all symmetrical and more equally spaced. I don't think they did anything like that, but that's why I did it. I wanted to come up with something that was bigger, badder, better, would still be able to use. So somebody that has an LS can take my SML, plug it right in, and hook it up to their exhaust, hook it up to their hot side, cold side, and go race it. So it's not a different engine; it's just a better one.
Okay. And I think I'm looking at the time because I don't know, or we didn't really put a time limit. We're coming up on 2 hours. This is probably the biggest chat I had. 246 people here right now listening to us talk. That's awesome. And like I said, when you feel like we're ready to go, we can ready to go. But one thing, a question here, and I want to lead into is your own line of parts. You know, one of the things you said and that I read about you is that you wanted to, at one time, you wanted to be able to have your own brackets that you could make, your own heads, your own intakes, your own blocks. That was a dream that you had at one time, and it's come to fruition just with the SMX line. I mean, what can you tell me? I looked at some of the motors that you have, the engine blocks, you have the SMX, the SML. What sells the most? You know, the 481X, what do you use the most?
Well, my number one seller is still, it fluctuates between the LS platform and a big block Chevrolet platform.
Okay.
And, because the SMX is very niche oriented, and the SML is also very niche oriented. I mean, those are expensive engines. I mean, so that's the SML cost me literally about $100 less to manufacture than the SMX.
Wow.
So the SMX, you know, can make 45 plus 100 horsepower. The SML, you know, is this smaller LS based platform that can make 3,500 horsepower, but they're the same price. So I mean, those things are honestly. So before people ask, I mean, turnkey. Which is turbos, EFI, fuel system, oil system, turnkey running. I send it to you and it's running. You got to do your own headers, but it's running.
Yep.
That's like $135,000 deal.
Wow.
So that's obviously a fairly limited market, yeah. But it's a necessary market because if you want to go that fast, if you want to have something like that, if you want to have an LS, if you want the LS and you want to be that small engine platform and you want to make a lot, you know, 3,000 plus horsepower and drive it, there are some people that are doing solid motors that are not driving them. I'm talking about drive it to California and back to Michigan and make 3,500 horsepower. It's mine.
Okay.
That's it. And bolts into place of a stock LS. I mean, there's some, you know, there's some other stuff out there, but I mean, the plug and play replacement that can make 3,500 horsepower, I'm the only one. Then in the big world of 4,500 horsepower stuff, that I'm basically the only one too. So there's with the SMX. So there's really but there's still not a ton of people that want to spend that kind of money on engines.
Okay.
So my main line is still LS's, 1,000 horsepower to 2,000 horsepower in LS's, and then big block Chevrolets are 3,000 horsepower down, and then anybody that wants anything above that, then I move them into an SML or an SMX. And I'm always amazed. I mean, there's not hundreds of thousands of people, but there are hundreds of people. Yeah. that can do something like that. I haven't sold 100 of them yet. I mean, if I sold 100 of them, that would be great. But you know, I haven't done that yet.
All right, guys, you know his phone number, so just order one of those right up. He takes credit cards. We're good to go.
Yep. Order one for a spare too. You can always use a spare. That's right.
That makes sense.
Yep.
King Combat. Steve Morris is a legend in drag and drive space. I'd kill for SMX. It's awesome to see him getting the attention he deserves. Thank you. Thank you, King Combat.
I appreciate that. And, you know, spread the word. I am trying to grow this whole YouTube and social media presence thing, just trying to, my big goal is I'm thinking that if I can make it to 250,000 subscribers, I think that's probably because we are very tech oriented. I don't do stupid stuff. I'm just showing you exactly how things work, how you can do things, how I do things. So it's real tech oriented. So I don't think I can't ever foresee having 1 million subscribers or 3 million subscribers. But I can, if I could get to that 250,000, I think that would be awesome. So spread the word, help me get up there. It'd be great. Make sure you're subscribed too, because quite often I get a lot of comments of people thought they were subscribed, got unsubscribed, or didn't get subscribed, or one way, shape, form, or another, they figure out that they're not subscribed. So it's always interesting. People, I don't know if that's a YouTube thing. I don't know what's going on.
I'll ask the same thing. Hey, it's free to subscribe to DragBoss Garage. Push the button. Yeah. I don't need 200,000 subscribers. I'll be happy with 100,000.
Oh, they send you a plaque.
Oh. It's probably on your wall right now.
Well, it's on my desk. I haven't mounted it, but
that's nice.
I'm waiting to see what the next one is. I think maybe 250 is a logical number, but we'll see.
I've heard some guy on here, or I don't know who it was, but they had got 1 million subscribers and got this nice plaque with a YouTube symbol or whatever. And then like 2 weeks later, their channel was gone, dismissed.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that was their prize. I don't know. You always worry about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're on different platforms. And I think that's what I'm going to do. Have my wife help me, because I can't do all this by myself right now. But you need to go out onto Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. That's how you build your channel, by having that kind of social media following. And you're on those too, right?
Well, I haven't done that yet. I do. I used to just focus on Facebook and just do Facebook stuff. And I didn't start really doing. I've been posting YouTube videos for 12 years,
okay,
but I hadn't ever monetized or done anything to it, or hadn't tried to do anything or get bigger. So up until I got involved with doing an engine for Cletus, and then it's like, I think I better capitalize on this. I think I better try getting into this. So I think I had 50 or 60,000 viewers when I first got involved with Cletus, and he brings a lot of people over. I mean, he just does. So
maybe he'll do a live chat with me.
Yeah. You never know.
We'll have to ask him.
If I could pick up your 13,000 subscribers, that'd get me up to 2.
Okay.
That would be awesome.
I'll just take 50 of yours and I'll be all set too.
No, go ahead.
All right, guys, you heard him. If you're on his channel, click on mine.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's how it works. I appreciate that. And
what I was getting at was, I don't do anything on Twitter. Screw Twitter. I don't do anything with TikTok. Heck with those guys. I do with Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube right now.
All right. I'll have to follow in your footsteps.
Yeah. There could be something more you could do. I just don't know.
Around 200 watching. 250 right now, John. Thank you. Great works, Tim. Steve is unbelievable, interesting, but it's down-to-earth explanations. And you really are. I thank you for taking the time for this. And it just blows me away, the people that are on here and your explanations of this high horsepower. I have no concept of this. Here I am, with a 775 horsepower Cleveland, thinking I'm like top of the world. And then you start talking about these platforms. It just blows me away, the technology and the horsepower. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't even think I'd want to get behind a car with, 2,000 horsepower, let alone 3 or 3,500.
Yeah, it's a handful. I have a Trailblazer SS.
Okay.
That makes 1,000 horsepower to the rear wheel, and that's my daily driver in the summer, and that's a handful. So
I can imagine, man.
Yeah, it's a handful. Stock body, 5,400 pounds. It was the fastest all-wheel drive Trailblazer in the country. Because it goes 9s.
Man, that's nice.
No roll cage. Don't get mad, people. I figured the factory's got it figured out pretty good. So.
And I was talking to you earlier about, you know, that the Boostmaster has power windows.
Yep.
You know, I love that. That's great. Here's one. This might be a good question. I don't know. Big John's engine and engineering. Do the billet blocks cool noticeably better than the cast aluminum blocks?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer because that would take a bunch of sensors to really accurately figure that out. So if material wise, I don't think there'd be anything different. In the cast block, obviously you can cast water jackets that you can't machine.
Right.
So, you know, people need to understand as if you know, let's pretend this is a tool bit. If this tool can't reach something, it can't machine it. But a casting, you can put a pocket underneath my hand that this tool bit can't even see or get to. So theoretically, realistically, I think that the cast stuff would cool better. But I've done a reasonably good job of getting this SMX and SML to cool cool properly. But does it cool better? I don't think I could say that. I think I would just say it cools properly.
Okay. Someone was asking before about, and I can't get back to it right now, but who does your port work? Do you do it yourself?
The porting, yeah, basically we do it ourselves.
Okay.
Well, and now we actually physically do our porting in house. I mean, we make our own cylinder heads, do our own porting. We have the machinery, have everything there. Beforehand, I would have just bought it from people. Matt at MBE. I mean, he's done some stuff from us. He's actually a little high end for us, but
there it is right there. There's the question. Yeah, a little high end.
Oh, there's Matt. Oh, what Matt mentioned Val Springs, or I mentioned Val Springs?
Let's see. This is Adrian. This guy's from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Adrian. Does your previous guest, Matt, do his porting? Well, he just kind of talked about that, as he was mentioning, Val Springs being so much better in the last 8 years. I think he's just talking about Val Spring technology, how it's improved in the last 8 years.
Yeah, the materials obviously have gotten a lot better. So, yeah, the materials have gotten better. I worked pretty hard on proper camshaft design and not going over, trying to make sure that things live. Because like I said, we can make more horsepower. That's easy.
Right.
But it make things live. So I have relatively small camshafts compared to everything else I typically see.
Okay. Whose springs do you use? PAC, PSI? Who do you?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, they use PSI stuff on the SML and SMX. Cletus's use the PAC 1226 spring. I covered that in the video.
Carly Wolf. Thank you, Carly Wolf. I spoke to Eliminator at PRI, and they are now working with a new foundry, so they should starting to become available.
Yeah, that's possible. I think that's what Kazi was saying, was that
okay,
they're just in the middle of something, so there's nothing available yet. I do think that the big block Ford stuff is a pretty decent platform. If I was ever to do another billet deal,
yep.
I'd have to, if I found a customer that wanted to help with this whole deal, I would do it in a big block Ford, a big drag and drive all billet big block Ford.
Oh, yeah.
I would do that. Because that would go in, I would change. It would be proprietary block and cylinder head, because I would move those head bolts around, and I would make it a better clamping force. But it would still be a big block Ford. 4,900 bore space, symmetrical port. Front distributor, all that kind of crap.
I like it. We'll answer this, and then I got one more we'll go back to. But I'm a Cleveland guy. Do you ever build Clevelands? What's your experience with a Cleveland, Steve? Anything?
I had a 351M once in a truck.
Okay. Hey, it's close enough.
Yeah, I'm familiar with canted valve heads. I mean, to do that, but I've probably not seen a. Oh, I might have seen way back like 20 plus years ago an actual Cleveland engine. Otherwise, I've probably never even seen one.
Okay. Well, I got a bunch of them back here. You can take a look at them and take a picture of them, put them on your wall.
Yeah.
This could be a good topic. You know, rings. The new thing is like what, the 0.3 or whatever, 0.5 millimeter. What ring packages do you use?
All that stuff is all NA related.
Okay.
So the NA guys are using a lot of really small, low tension rings.
Yep.
Problem with those is in high horsepower applications, boosted applications, they just destroy that stuff instantaneously. It will not. That ring, I promise you, will be junk before it gets out of the burnout box. It will be burned up. Technically not burned up. It'll just take all the tension out of it. So there's so much heat there. There's so much pressure. The ring can't take it. It's not like an NA deal.
Okay.
Typically we use a steel 16th, 3/16 because it's still the most sturdy ring available. If I could get into, I would do it if we wanted to go up into like a 5/64 ring. So that'd be another, let's see, 62. So that would be another, what is a 5/64 to 3/16? So that'd be, whatever. I think that's another 60, no, not 60 thousandths. That's another, probably like another 20 thousandths or so. It would make it a better, tougher ring. So since I'm not hunting for that 10 horsepower, 20 horsepower, right, I'm just hunting for something that lives, makes seals up the cylinder bore, because I would lose more horsepower by having a weak top ring that leaked than I would having a high tension steel ring that didn't leak.
Okay. So
it's much better for me to have a tougher ring up there. So that's why we use a 16th steel top, AP steel top from like Total Steel.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know the difference with all the boost and the pressure. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I have. If you guys go to, so you probably haven't seen either. If you go to my website and you can go to video links, I have a lot of my tech videos there. So here, before I got involved in really pushing the YouTube, I thought that I was doing it through my Steve Tech. So I was doing tech videos called Steve Tech, and I had specific stuff on piston rings, valve jobs, balancing, surfacing. I mean, a whole bearing clearances, any kind of stuff that you want to see is right there on my website, and just takes you right to a YouTube link, and you can see exactly. I got a 30-minute video on piston rings and why you have to use this piston ring in a boosted application.
I gotta check it out. Like you guys that are on here that don't go to Steve's or haven't been there, look it up and look at that tech stuff. It's good stuff.
Yep.
Thank you for letting us know that. Michael Caruso, thank you. 1999.
Go back to that one. I didn't catch that. I didn't read the whole thing about the gapless top.
Oh yeah, let me find it again. It's going to take me a second. There's so many questions. It's like I can't keep up with them all. And I don't want to. Let me ask you a question while I'm looking for it. With Mullet, I noticed it had dowel pins or dowels for the main caps. Do most of your blocks have that?
Yeah, and technically, well, yeah, so a Brodix block actually physically uses the dowel pin. So some of my other blocks actually use I have the main stud is actually the dowel. So it's a larger machine portion on the base of it. That's actually a dowel. Oh yeah, so Steve properly get gap file fit piston rings versus gap. So, yep. Okay. This is all in my ring video, but I'll give you the short abridged version on what the problem with a gapless ring is. So if you use it, if you want to use a gapless top, I'm not opposed to that. That's not a big deal. The theory is that it would probably be pretty good, or it could be a little bit better. I wouldn't say pretty good. I would just say a little bit better. I do not buy into the philosophy of gapless second rings, a gapless, because anything that goes past, if you have anything at all that goes past the top ring, it has to go immediately into the oil pan. It has to. If it doesn't, if it gets captured in between the first and top ring, it expands there and it gets worse. So it accents its problem, and it usually will, in a boosted application, it usually will push the top ring up and break the piston, or push the second ring down and break the ringland. So the gapless ring in the second ring is a problem. So I don't ever use that. Don't ever recommend it. It's crap. Gapless top, I don't care if you want to mess around with it, go ahead, but I don't. So yes, properly gapped file fit rings are better.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm reading this on the screen. That's why I'm pointing to it.
I wonder if you can see it. That's why I read it, because sometimes.
Oh no, the questions pop up on my screen.
Well, for the readers or the people that are watching, they can't see these questions, so I read them out loud so they know what we're talking about.
Okay, I thought maybe it just popped up so everybody could see it.
No, only you and I can. Well, until I do this, I think. 308 Racing. How much boost difference do you typically see between the different available ports? LS1, LS3, LS7 on a turbo LS for a given horsepower. I know there are a lot of variables with this question. Thanks, Steve.
There are so many variables in that I really can't even answer that. How much boost difference do you typically see between different available ports? That's a little bit in the world that I don't mess around in, because it's this is, I don't mean to, I'm not trying to be condescending, but that's a little below what we normally do. So I haven't seen a real live LS1 port in a very long time. We do some stock LS3 heads, not as much anymore, and very rarely do we ever see a stock LS7 head. So everything is aftermarket heads, right? And so where the boost difference comes in, it would be really hard for me to ever have an engine that had the same camshaft, same short block, same camshaft, and be swapping heads. In these type heads, that's just not what we do. So I couldn't give you accurate information, but typically, in fact, not typically, it just is, the camshaft is the leading restrictor in an engine. Camshaft basically is dictating everything that's going on boost wise, because boost is a reflection of restriction. So that if the engine can't cycle all the air, it makes boost in the intake manifold, because it can't use all the air into the engine. Right. So that's where the boost number comes from. And typically you wouldn't see a whole ton in those 3-cylinder heads. Be pretty minimal if it was identical camshafts. But you know, obviously camshafts are a huge variant there on boost, airflow, etc.
Thank you.
I got a long videos, probably about 4 hours of videos on camshaft design, specifically talking about that.
Is that in your tech area?
Yeah, that's all on my Steve Tech stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, which is on YouTube. That's in my playlists on YouTube, or you can just access them directly off my website. I don't think I have all of them labeled there. I don't think Tim's got them all up yet, but you can see them in my playlist for sure.
Yeah, definitely going to be a channel member. I like to see that kind of stuff that you got going on. This might help. Daniel Wilson. Thanks, Daniel. Try again. Reed Racing Cams did camera cams and other components. the fellow that now has all of John's grind data and technical information grinds John's patterns now. He can help with the cam.
All right, that's cool. I haven't talked to Reed cams in 15 years, so I can check that out.
Perfect. Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate that. You know, I'm looking at the time, you know, 2 hours and 20 minutes. I don't want to take any more of your time.
Sure.
You know, not that I could talk here for another 2 hours, believe me, but I will leave it at this. Maybe you consider coming back again, you know, where we could do a couple just little topics, not whatever you want to do. Maybe basically I'm inviting you back again if you decide, Steve.
Sure.
I'd appreciate that. It's very impressive. I enjoyed it very much.
Yep.
And I think our max, we had 250 people here. That's a lot of people on a live chat for anybody, seriously. So we did really well.
Good.
And I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all the subscribers, all you guys. Mine, the guys that belong to DragBoss Garage, and Steve's. So Steve Morse Engine. So please go back and forth, subscribe to either one if you haven't. It helps us both to produce content. You know, like I have to think of my content and get things done. Steve, it just comes like that. He's doing it while he's working. He just starts filming. So That's awesome. I appreciate that, guys. I'm going to end the broadcast now, and we got a lot to talk about. I think we got some stuff going on. I appreciate it, Steve.
All right.
Much.
Thanks, guys.
Tuned to DBG.
Yep.